Hi there, folks. Simon here with the 2024 March Intermediate TAC Open. This is the semifinals match between Spawnoza and MehrGills. These folks have each beaten their groups in the group stage and moved on to the semifinals, where they now have a two-game match. It looks like game one is going to be Spawnoza in white and MehrGills in black. Each player has played quite a few times in different events, whether that be the beginner tournament that Spawnoza just recently participated in and took second place, if I'm not mistaken. And MehrGills has played in a number of other events, including other intermediate opens. But today we are going to watch this intermediate semifinals game to see who moves on to the finals of this tournament. This is played on a 6x6 board with 15 minutes on the clock, 10-second increment, with a 2 Comey value. That means that 2 gets added to Black's flat count score at the end of the game if the game does not end in a road. And without any further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, and we see opposite corners here. Going straight into that Knight's opening for Spawnoza, and then immediately answered here by MehrGills. Looks like they have a response for that. And probably, yep, a C4 placed. I do like a capstone there, but a flat works just fine for sure. And white going off for that A3 placement. This is another one of those plays that works towards the horizontal and the vertical. I don't know that that one is very strong here. This is where a capstone could drop here at D3, and if it does, you might even see black's cap drop at D4. But instead, white's cap drops at D4. This is where black's cap could drop at D3 here. An interesting play to give up the momentum here to get that capstone up in that D4 position. Let's see. MehrGills taking his time to come up with a response to this one. I do like a capstone here at D3 for black. I don't like a flat very much. Ooh, the capstone comes down at B2 instead. Really just wants to cut off this horizontal that white's building. But white can start working towards their vertical play here at D3. And they've got a vertical line already being built. And that doesn't... And then it still works for the horizontal at the same time. I feel like white's got a really good play here to just drop a flat at D3. Nothing wrong with that at all. All right, so we see the A2 placement here from white instead. Trying to cut white off from making a horizontal connection, I guess. Or cut black off, sorry, from making a horizontal connection. Black content to build down at C2. Looks like they're expecting to bring their capstone up onto B3, and then probably expecting to bring that capstone right to make some sort of vertical line. So we'll probably be seeing a C1 here, or maybe a B5 or something like that from black in the near future. White, I still think, should be dropping at D3 here. Now, the play is missed if black drops at D2. Black might want to drop at D2. But if black drops at D2, when black finally does come up to B3, white won't be able to shift gears to that vertical quite as easily by dropping there at D2, since it's going to be occupied. Both players taking a similar amount of time here on their turns in the first 7 turns here. Black playing up at A5. So is going for that vertical line here. White does now have the ability to drop there at d2, but will be losing that momentum race here if they do so at this point due to that a5 placement. Black not quite committed to a vertical line, but definitely pushing towards one. White can certainly make attack threat here on this turn by playing either a d5, e3, or e4, but that just invites black's capstone on b2 to come straight up, which is what I'm expecting here. That capstone, yep, comes right up onto b3, cuts off that line. Now white can continue by dropping a flat at d2, not immediately renewing the threat, of course, but working towards that direction. And I believe white would still have momentum here over black if they did so, if they played at d2. Because black would need to play at c1 or b2 or a6 or something before that. Black instead going to drop a flat up at d6. I like this play because black already has some movement going in that horizontal direction up near the top. And then you drop another flat to block things up there, and it just works in your favor. White then combating that with a c6 placement. This is able to come over onto d6 to make that road threat. Any sort of capture involved up there currently would probably be on d5, which would get that white capstone involved. Black now playing down at d1 to block that off. This, is a good placement here, kind of delaying making any sort of captures or anything of that sort, which is a good play. Notice that there has only been one capture this game so far, and it has been using a capstone. So those flat-on-flat captures have not been done, which is something that we see fairly regularly in higher-level intermediate games and top-level games. It is something that I talk about in the captures video of TAC University. All right, black dropping a flat again at c5. This working towards that horizontal up at the top end, and also able to come up onto c6 if necessary to keep that from making that threat capturing over onto d6. White, if they want to make a threat here, they're going to have to make two captures in order to make that threat, or be placing at e6 and e5 to make that that threat. So two captures gives plenty of time for black to set up some sort of defense against that. White here. I kind of like the e6 placement, but I also kind of like dropping at b1. Just kind of committing to the horizontal down at the bottom. You've got your capstone involved at d4. It can come left and kind of mess up what black's working on. So I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think b1 might be a fun route to go. Yes, you still have to make a capture to make a threat there, but I don't think it's that bad. And you're further away from making a threat with it, but I think that it's a little more solid than what they've got going in this vertical direction. Because in the end, black's capstone can still interfere with white's vertical as well. There's a lot that can be done. Oh, white does go for that b1 placement. I do like this. I think this is a fun turn. It's also a bit denying black here if they're vertical, though I think that we can use... Black could probably go for a flat at B2 here. That wouldn't be bad. Ooh, black instead comes over with the capstone. Not making a threat yet, but able to make a threat on the following turn. Placing a flat at A6 would be a road threat there. White's prospects of vertical and horizontal roads are a bit more in trouble here. Though White's capstone is poised to come over onto C3, which is currently a sort of linchpin stone for basically everything that Black is working on right now. So it is not over for either of these guys. Something interesting and uncommon in a lot of tournaments these days, which is becoming more and more common for some of these lower level tournaments, like the beginner tournaments, for example. Intermediate, not obviously a lower level tournament, but these two players are both American, and I think maybe even the whole semifinals are all Americans, which is I'm going to say unusual. I think there is a all-American beginner semifinals as well, for one of these beginner tournaments that we've got. So very unusual, as we often have a lot of European folks playing in these and doing quite well. So surprising to say. And our last winner of the last beginner tournament was, in fact, Australian. So there you go. Big international community here. All right, White dropping a flat at E1, wanting to come left with E1 onto D1 here to combat any sort of threat that Black makes by placing at A6. I support that. That's fine. That's a good move. Black doesn't want to come left with D1, as it just gets recaptured by B1, and it just kind of falls apart there. There are some things you can do with that, as ultimately that spot on C1 can be recaptured by the capstone on C3. So if really wants to go into a capture war there, got the capstone, able to recover those captives and run left or up to do some damage there in terms of flat count differential, or FCD, which we talk about in the flat count differential or FCD video of TAC University. But I'm not exactly sure that that is the right play here. Goes for it anyway. Goes for the capture. This is attack threat, either placing at A6 or capturing left with D6. Both of those would be a road, so White's going to have to stop him here. One of the ways you could do it is by capturing left with D2, or by capturing right with B1, or by capturing left with the capstone at D4. Does capture left with D2, and then that black capstone comes down right away. I can't imagine we won't see a wall here at C3. This seems like it's begging for a wall, basically. And if we do see a wall drop there at C3, I imagine black will probably place a flat at b3. Continue things that way. Unless they decide to switch gears and move towards the horizontal at the top end by placing it e6. A lot of different ways this could go. Again, the branching factor is pretty big in TAC, even so early on in the game. There's a lot of good, viable moves here that that black can make. White is a little bit throttled by their position right now, so they can probably... I can't see anything as good as the wall on c3 or bringing the capstone left onto c4. Those feel like the best moves here. And if you want to maintain your position with that capstone so that you can go for a vertical at some point, then it's the wall. I'm not sure how viable that is because of that capstone stack on c2 from black. White does go for that wall. Black, I imagine, would fill in at b3, and they do. This is where we're seeing quite a big time difference. Spawnoza taking a lot more time on these turns at 7 minutes on the clock, whereas MehrGills 12 minutes 40. So playing a lot quicker MehrGills at this point in the game. 15 moves in. And again, they do have that 15 minutes on the clock, a 10-second increment. So they get 10 seconds added to their clock after every turn. But definitely a big gap here. That is a 6-minute gap? Yeah, a 6-minute time buffer, basically, that MehrGills has. So he has an extra 6 minutes to think about his moves from here on out until things get more even out. And that, let me tell you, is an advantage. And anyone who has played Blitz TAC will definitely tell you that is a huge advantage. White going over and playing at b6 here. Interesting play. I can see black dropping a flat at b2. That would make a lot of sense to me. b2 flat, because that connects, goes for the vertical with either the d6 left or the a6 placement. Also keeps white from, if you, for example, played at a6, white could wall at b2 and kind of mess you up there. So this stops that. Does go for the b2 placement. This is attack threat, 2 ways. White can stop it. One of the ways I see this going down is that wall on c3 moving left onto b3, and then after black fills in, white's capstone moving left onto c4, which creates sort of like this diagonal blockage there, and then black has nowhere to go with that that vertical line. Would sort of be forced to pick up the horizontal at the top, or go for some other horizontal down at the bottom, probably. I don't know about going around those 2 blockers at any point. But if that does happen, okay, if the wall does come left, if black fills in here, we could see white's capstone move left. Black fills in, cap moves left. Does black play at e6 as I expected? This follows my my prediction so far. There's a lot to be said about being able to predict these moves, and also about their validity. Because if both players are expecting the other to make the move, and they make the move anyway, both players think that it benefits them ultimately. But who's looking farthest ahead, basically, is the question there. Because whoever's looking farthest ahead, or more accurately farthest ahead, will be the one that comes out on top. Because if they both are playing these moves, they both think that it benefits them. Anyway, that's just my philosophical ramblings about tech. White playing at E3. Okay, so they're going for this vertical line still. I think black might be playing something like a D2 to come up onto D3 ultimately and mess that up. Could play at E6. Could play at A6. Could even play at B5. I think A6 is good because it still is making that connection vertically. It's working towards the horizontal. It's blocking white from building a horizontal at A6 because they're kind of going for a horizontal here and a vertical there, but they would need that A6 to really make that horizontal work. And the vertical is kind of shut down by black's capstone placement. That capstone stack is just too strong. If white wants to drop at E2, for example, black can just come over and get rid of that right away. Black does go for that E6 placement. This is not a road threat, but it's building toward one. Placing a flat on B5 for black on the next turn would be a threat. Would need to be stopped. White might want to drop a flat there at B5 to stop it. Doesn't. Instead just drops a flat here at E4. Probably counting on the fact that this E4 flat can now come left or the D3 flat more likely can come up and capture onto D4 to stop that road threat from happening. If that's the case, maybe a flat at E5 would be helpful for black here. But I do think a D3 plus is likely if black plays at B5 here, and that ultimately works out best for white. That's what it looks like. Closing that time gap, though, MehrGills taking a little bit extra time now, down to a 5-minute buffer, as opposed to the 6 that he had. Good time to take times. Oh, he does go for the B5 placement. Are we going to see D3 plus in response from white? D3 plus would stop black's horizontal tack threat here. Ooh. Instead goes for the D5 left. I don't know about that. Wall drops immediately, ready to capture over onto that stack. I don't blame him for dropping that wall there. That seems tricky now for white. Got that liability that the black's wall can take advantage of. And we take a look at the flat count here. Black has 10 flats showing, which means they're at 12 because it is 2 Comey in this intermediate tournament. Oh, sorry. They have 11 showing. There's that one up above the capstone you can barely see. So it's 13 for black. Whereas white is at 11. So 13 to 11 at this point. Interesting capture to get away from that wall. Black drops a flat, filling in. I'm not sure how useful that stack movement was. moving the c5 to b5. White bringing that wall up to protect against the stack, but also bringing it up so if they can fill in at b3, white can smash that wall for a road. Black should probably fill in here at b3. Yeah, filling in at b3 feels pretty good. It stops white from being able to make that threat right away, though white can still smash the wall and make the threat. So if they're smashing the wall, they get a threat here. Black can stop it by capturing down there like on a2 or on a3, or capturing up at b5, for example. But I'm not sure. Oh, white can't smash the wall. What am I thinking? If they smash the wall, black wins by taking d6 left. Okay. White now working towards something. Placing at a6. Yeah, white's capstone can't smash. They'll lose to a road. Looks like MehrGills has that 6-minute time buffer again. Made a little extra time back. And still up on flats, I believe. 13 for black. 12 for white. Now 14 for black. Dropping another flat there. Getting ready to make a connection, probably in the horizontal way. Also wants to block white from making that vertical connection there, even though they're a couple captures away from being able to make a threat. Black may drop here at d2. They can continue to just keep dropping flats, keep pushing, forcing white to make these captures, and they can capitalize on them with walls, recaptures, things like that. White, what does white have going for him? It's hard to say what white could do here. I mean, they can't smash. What can they do? I'm trying to think about bringing the wall left on b4, but that doesn't do a ton. It does allow you to smash and make the threat, but opens up the just the fill-in flat placement. I don't know. This is a tricky spot here for both. Ooh, white drops the wall, wanting to deny black the pleasure of going for that horizontal, but that puts him back one more flat. Gives black an even greater flat advantage here, able to drop a flat now on d1. Black can start pushing this towards a board fill. Only 4 spots open here. And forcing it towards a board fill also forces white to make suboptimal captures, which will not work in their favor. Ooh, black can go ahead and drop another flat here, probably at like f4, something like that. If they do, they are taunting him with a board fill coming up soon, not allowing him to place. Because it is 15 for black, 14 for white. So ultimately, black would end up winning that, I believe. So black places to 16, white places to 15, black places to 17 and wins. if it were to go that way. But white is going to have to make some captures if black does drop a flat here. And what would they do for their capture, I wonder? Tricky. I am surprised that MehrGills is not just dropping a flat here. You can push this towards that board fill. Spawnoza down to 2 minutes on the clock. That is a 5-minute buffer here. Black does place there at f4. This is pushing for a board fill. If white drops a flat here, he loses, because black will fill in the final spot and win on flats. So white has to make a capture here to stop that from happening. One of the things I'm thinking of is that white might make a capture down below with like b1 right to sort of start a capture war down there, recovering a flat, maybe able to do something with that. But ultimately, I don't think that it makes that big of a difference. It might just be a wasted, but trying to think of some other capture. Ooh, they come down with the capstone. I'm not sure what that does, but it does keep them from losing to board fill right away. And they may be working towards the horizontal, trying to capture up with B1 at some point, something like that. But black can probably feel free to fill in here at C4, where white's capstone just vacated. That seems fine to me. Filling in at C4 continues to put on the pressure for that board fill. Not really threatening a road or anything, but they're in a good enough position. Flat-wise, they don't really need to worry about making too many road threats, as they can continue pushing for this board fill right now and make that their priority. MehrGills using that time buffer, down to 5 minutes on the time buffer, so 6 minutes on the clock. Gotta be sure he's not missing anything, no tricky moves. Doesn't go for the fill, places it at f5 instead. He's sort of daring white to fill in at c4, saying, look, it's a great spot for you to drop your flat. It'll work for your connections. But it's a trap. It's a trap. And it would just lead to a board fill win for black. So again, white cannot make a placement here, has to make a capture, comes down with the wall. Black probably going to fill in here at D2 with a flat. And I say that because this stack on C1 is worthless to grab. Now, it's great to grab stacks with a wall so you can spread them out and make great flat count differential moves. But if you take a look at where that flat stack is on C1, if the wall grabs it, it can't go anywhere with it to make a positive flat count differential move. It's essentially just a wasted capture, because it can't cover anything up. All right, white makes another capture. This is not threatening a road, but it could be very shortly. If A3 comes right or B1 comes up, both of those would be road threats. Probably A3 right. It gets protected by the wall, and has two opportunities for a road as opposed to the one. So if I'm black, I'm probably still just placing here, to be honest. I'd probably place at F2. Ooh, drops a wall, wants to be sure that this will not happen. White comes over with their wall. Now, you see the white wall comes over and the black wall comes over. Which wall is going to do more damage? It's clearly the black wall, because the black wall can spread that wall onto white flats. The white wall cannot spread that onto black flats at all. And so the capture there was significantly better for black, that trade. White drops a flat. Black probably content to drop a flat here at D2. They do so. Even if white drops a flat at D1, they can't make a threat with it. They capture up. Again, not making a threat, but they're sort of baiting black in to place a flat at B1 or D1 so that the C1 stack can make a positive flat count differential move. So black should probably drop a flat up there at E5. And they do so, not falling for any baits. Now I could see... Yep, B2 comes up, making the tack threat here. This is where, if I'm black, I'm probably going to capture right with E2. No, he does the full spread upwards. I didn't expect the spread. He's already ahead on flat count. He didn't need to make the spread. He could have done just the +2 move as opposed to the +3. But white's not in a position to make a threat at the moment. Black plays at B2 is what should happen. Black should play at B2. Because if white wants to make this work, they've got to make either a capture or place at D1. And if black plays at B2 first, and then white plays at D1, black just fills in and wins on board fill. Black does play at B2. What's white's response? Maybe E2 left? No, okay. F2 plus. So black's got to defend this now. And will they defend it with like an F4 minus or... F4 minus maybe, or I don't think they want to do D2 plus because that gives the capstone an opportunity to come over and get a and liberate a captive. Comes over with the capstone. Okay. Nice and safe. Nice and safe. White comes up, threatening to smash the wall on B4 for the road. What's the response? Is it like a B2 plus here? Or no, B2 left probably is much better, much stronger. Not quite here. Can't push that board fill forever. Ooh, does go for the B2 plus. That's inviting that wall stack to come over onto it. Granted, I see what he's doing because there's nowhere for that to spread onto other black flats, so it's not threatening any positive flat count differential moves. So that's not that big of a deal. Does need to make sure that he stops anything happening in that vertical direction over there, because that's a dangerous position to be in right now. Might need to drop another wall at B2. Ooh, doesn't go. Oh, because he's got one flat left. He wins. He's got one flat left. There's nothing that white can do to stop him here. Let's take a look at the flat count. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 14 for black. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 for white. So yeah, black just drops the last flat and wins. Well played there to MehrGills and to Spawnoza. It was a great game. These guys played a great game there, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. And congratulations to MehrGills for winning game 1 of this semifinals match in the 2024 Intermediate TAC Open of March. So that was fun. I'm excited for their game 2 because they seem to be fairly solidly matched. MehrGills had the upper hand in that one, but who knows how this next game will turn out. But that is all for today. Thanks for watching, folks. Be sure to check out the description below for all things TAC, especially the TAC Discord server, which is the community hub and where you can find all sorts of TAC resources like strategy guides and people to play with, whether that be right here on playtac.com or asynchronously through the Discord server itself. Tons and tons of resources, tons and tons of great people to play with. So be sure to check that out. And until next time, have a great day and happy tacking.